Okay, in this video I'm going to show you basic Briggs Stratton carburetors. This is just a typical flow jet carburetor you'd find on 8 horsepower to probably right up to 12 horsepower carbs. No, I'm sorry, 7 horse, whatever. Anyways, first off, this is your throttle. Your choke would be right here, but this is the style where it's the automatic choke on the back. This is your air and fuel mixture screw that adjusts your idle mixture, and this is your full throttle mixture. So you take a 1/2 inch wrench, take that bowl nut off. I've already pre-loosened this. Pull off your float bowl. Make sure there's no dirt or anything. If there's dirt in here, you should probably clean that out. Any rust either. If there's rust in here, you should clean that out. And this is basically the inside of your carburetor. This is your float. You can see how it's not right. It's kind of up a little bit. It's not really level. That's supposed to be level. If that's not level, then your carburetor it's not gonna run. It's not gonna run right. Anyway, if you take, it's just holding by this little pin right here. Let's see if I can get that out of there without having to get pliers. I'm gonna have to get pliers. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get pliers. But basically, once you get the float out, this might be a little bit of a long video, I don't know. Take a pair of needle nose, pull that pin out, make sure you don't lose it. You should make sure that's clean too, because if that's not clean, that might make your float stick. You take off your float and your needle valve. Now, once you get your float and your needle out, make sure your needle valve has no pieces of dirt on there. This is a Tecumseh needle valve. Yeah, I know, it's in a Briggs carburetor, that's all I had. If there's little pieces of dirt on this, it's gonna make it not seat right, and it's gonna keep continually flooding gas. It's just gonna keep filling that up with gas and leaking out. Same with your float. If your float's got holes in it, the only good way to check this is if you shake it. If you hear any gas in there, like any fluid splashing around, then your float's bad. You can patch them with solder, but it's just best to get a new float. Usually when your float fills up with gas, it becomes heavy, and it drops down like this, and it doesn't let the needle valve just sits open, and it just lets gas keep pouring in through your carburetor, and it just leaks too. So if a carburetor is flooding or leaking, you want to check these two guys right here. Sometimes it could be your seat too. 9 times out of 10 it's the float. But now if you take a screwdriver, stick it right down in there like that. This is your main jet. You want to make sure this is really clean. It's kind of a long jet. Oops. Now this is basically your idle circuit. If you're having problems with this thing idling, you want to make sure those little holes right there are clean. It's 100% important that those little holes have like nothing in them. You can see how you can see through them. Those have to be really clean. If those aren't clean, it's not going to run right. You might want to spray some carburetor cleaner down there. And basically, this right here, this is your other main jet. There's 2 main jets in the whole carburetor. I want to get a screwdriver and just kind of, that's tight, 1 second. Kind of keep the camera focused into that jet, it's not too hard. This is the longest out of the 2. This is a really long jet. See if we can get a better view of this here. Now this jet right here. This jet here is extremely important if this isn't clean. If this isn't clean, it's not going to run at all. You can see how you can see through those little holes. Same with the ones up here too. Now you don't want to lose these jets. These jets are 100% important. If these aren't clean, it's not going to work at all. It's just going to like backfire. If it even runs at all, it's not really going to work in it. Sometimes after years of use too, these can develop some play in them. This one here is fine, but you can get kits for these. And then this one right here, this little thing right here, it's not actually 100% important to take this out, but I do anyway, just to make sure it's clean. That's a little tight. This is your idle air and fuel mixture screw. You gotta look on there and make sure. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus in on this. Alright. Focus. It's not gonna focus. No, it ain't gonna focus. But everything you gotta look on these little needles too, because there's like a little worn ring around this sometimes. And once you get the little worn ring, these things aren't really gonna do very much anymore. You gotta make sure there's a little hole down there, because if that little hole's plugged, then that's not gonna work at all. Sometimes when people jam these down there, that little tip breaks off into that little hole. And that actually happened on a specific carburetor. I had to drill that back out again very carefully. Be careful when you do that, because you can destroy the brass. But MacMan 3000 wanted to know, he has a carburetor like this, I think, and his has flooding gas. So if you've got a carburetor that's flooding gas a lot, you want to check this. You want to shake this, make sure there's no gas in it. If there's no gas in it, then the float's good. Then you want to check your needle valve. You got to clean off your needle valve, make sure it's good. This is not the right needle valve, but it looks similar to that. And then what you do is you put your needle back into the slot on the float. If I can get it in there, just bear with me here. This takes a little practice. Or not practice, but you know, it takes a minute just to get in there, and I'm doing this with one hand. So you just slide that in there like that. And you just drop the float on. I'm off camera here, I'm sorry. Just drop the float on like that, then you take your pin and you stick it in that little hole. I'm off camera again. Trying to see what I'm doing here. It's hard to look through the camera and do what I'm doing at the same time. And then you gotta try to get the float in there, in those little holes. Get a better view here. You gotta try to just kind of move it around so it goes through like that. There. Now, you want to make sure your fuel shutoff valve open. If you want to check to see if this is leaking, blow through this hole and then shake your float up like that to make sure it stops. When the float's down like this, you should not be able to blow any air at all through this at all. If you blow air through, then it's just going to leak gas and it's going to flood the carburetor. And that's basically it. Just going to stick the bowl back on. Well, I've got to put the jets in. Anyway, that's basically it if your carburetor's flooding. You just got to check your float, make sure there's no gas in it. You know, make sure your needle valve doesn't have anything stuck in it. Check your seat. Those are the three main components that make your carburetor basically cycle. And I think that's it.